all right with everyone, and I think that that is already up and running, and Fran is just getting us ready here with the slides. So for those of you who just tuned in, welcome again to a kind of special edition almost of our International Perspectives on Corpus Technology for Language Learning seminar series, this joint ongoing and lengthy and very productive collaboration now between the School of Languages and Cultures, the University of Queensland, Australia, and the State University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, with some co-sponsorship by both us and the CAPES initiative in Brazil. Today, again, it's not part of the regular season of our usual seminar series. We are considering planning season 4, and you will hear about that in due course through the usual channels. But today marks a kind of week since the advent launch of a new open educational resource in the form of a full edited academic book produced by ourselves, the University of Queensland School of Languages and Cultures staff, so myself, Franciel Spinelli, and then the team from the State University of Sao Paulo, Brazil, Paulo Pinto, and Carolina de Carvalho, as well as numerous contributing editors and authors from the Brazilian academic context, as well as real practicing teachers in Brazil, I think some of whom are here with us tonight to help launch this fantastic new resource, a book, an online open educational resource, so freely available to everybody out there. I'm going to be sharing that with you. If I can just, I think I'm just feeding back on myself a little bit there, but yeah. So tonight we're going to be talking about this new book, Using Language Data to Learn About Language, a Teacher's Guide to Classroom Corpus Use. And we're very pleased to be launching this book and sharing it with the academic and teaching and research community tonight. Can we head over to the next slide, please, Fran? And as is customary with any public ceremony, meeting here in Australia, we'd first like to provide a quick acknowledgement of country, in which we acknowledge the Jagera and Turrbal people here in Brisbane, or Mianjin, as it is known by the Indigenous community. We would like to pay our respects to their ancestors and their descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country, while recognizing their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. So thank you, Fran. And as we mentioned before, this is a kind of special edition of our joint seminar series, International Perspectives on Corpus Technology for Language Learning. And I think many of you here in the audience will have either presented in this series or attended one of the talks, at least one of the talks over the period. As you can see here, it ran for 3 seasons, 30 online seminars, speakers from 20 plus universities around the world, with thousands of participants across a huge range of countries. The second most popular which is that of Brazil. And Brazil is our special focus for today, in that this is the context where the teacher training, the lesson materials, the finalized lesson plans, and the book content was sourced from, in what is a relatively rare but very welcome open educational resource on DDL, not just for the English language, but also for second language learners of Spanish and Brazilian Portuguese. So let's head over to the next slide. And here is where I will hand over to my colleague, Paula.
Thank you so much, Peter. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. It's nice to see my colleagues some of the representatives from the UQ, Dr. Adriana Diaz, and the coordinator of my program, Dr. Claudia Zavalha, and the representative of our international office, Ana Cristina Biondo, as well as the authors. So you can go to the next one, Fran. So thank you so much. I'm here with Dr. Peter Crosswaith, to whom I thank so much for this opportunity, with Carolina and Franciele, who have worked very hard on this publication. You will see, I hope everyone has the chance to take a look on the book, which is really beautiful and dynamic. We can take the book to online classes and offline classes, hands-on and hands-off. And we are going to show some of the lessons here. We're going to show two lessons, one to teach Spanish and another one to teach English, based on data-driven learning. So I think I can start by talking about Brazilian context and some of the authors as well, sorry. We have Aline Cantarotti, Aline Kiminami, Adriane Orenho Tayano, my colleague, who might be here. Maybe Aline and Adriane are here. Can you just say hi, please?
Hi there.
Okay, Adriane and Aline. Is Aline there? I'm not sure. And Adriane. The next slide, yeah. We have Dr. Celso Rocha, Gianni, Liliane, who are here. Could you just say hi, please, Celso, Gianni, and Liliane?
Hi there, it's a pleasure to be here.
Good morning. Hello, morning.
All right, Luciano was not able to come. And then we have Silmara, Talita, and William. Silmara is here and she's going to be the one presenting the lesson in Spanish. Can you just say hi, Silmara, please?
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, so Silmara is going to present it in Spanish. But anyway, okay, so those are the authors of this book. And we organized this book. First of all, we published it in Portuguese to language teachers in Brazil, since we do have English in schools, and English and Spanish, we have those in secondary schools and high school. And in open courses, we usually have students who get in touch with French, German, Italian, and Japanese, usually because of their descent, because of their family. Brazil, it's a multi-national country where we have people from different countries who came in different times of history. And usually we have those languages spoken at home or in some teaching contexts as well. In 2017, as you can see, only 5% of Brazilian high school students demonstrated proficiency in English. And as everybody knows, English has become the lingua franca worldwide in a globalized world. So it's important for us to encourage not only students in class, but also teachers to have some reliable resources that they can count on when preparing that class, those classes, right? And in 2021, Brazil was considered the 56th out of 100 countries with a moderate proficiency level in English. So not only students have a quite, basic or intermediate level of English, but teachers as well. So that's why we thought of organizing this book so that students and teachers can rely on some reliable resource based on Corpora, which we are going to show pretty soon. First of all, what is data-driven learning, DDL? It's a teaching approach to foreign language learning that considers language as data and students as researchers undertaking guided discovery tasks. So every lesson, as you're going to see, is going to be guided by the teacher so that students can conclude and come up to conclusions concerning the foreign language they are studying, right? So they become kind of detectives of language. And also, DDL, it's a pattern-based approach to grammar and vocabulary and a lexicogrammatical approach to language in general. The students come to their conclusions by exploring language data, which are collections of texts called corpora, and reach their higher order thinking skills while acquiring knowledge. So they will come to the conclusion over the vocabulary and grammar based on observing the patterns that they can withdraw from those collections of texts. Why did we decide to organize this teaching material to teachers in Brazil? Because we have different language settings. As you can see, we have classes usually with 40, 50 students. Sometimes we do have technology, sometimes we do not have technology. So it will depend on the economical state of the school. So in this case, the material that we have organized can be used in class and can be used by students so that they can organize the lesson plans and take printed material to their classes. So it's a language support for teachers, a stimulus to language exploration and autonomy by students, motivation for interdisciplinary projects. So teachers can also develop some teaching projects with teachers from other areas such as biology, history, geography, and it's a reliable resource to be used in face-to-face and online classes, since the teaching, the corpora, which are the collection of texts, are usually selected by researchers. So it should be, most of them, some of them are open source, but most of them are really carefully collected to compile those corpora. And why publishing this material to language teachers from different countries? Because they do have similar contexts as in Brazil. Some classes with technology, some classes without technology, but different teaching methodologies. And we can use this the book can be used as an inspiration to different languages, different cultures, different teaching contexts, and to the use of other tools, as well as part of an open science initiatives, which is part of open education resources, as Fran is going to talk about right now. Thank you.
Well, so good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Thanks, Paula, and Peter for the introduction. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the process behind developing this book. So as Paula mentioned, so this book was originally written in Portuguese by the UNESCO team. So this is the original book. So what happened is that after having access to this book, we worked on translating this book from Portuguese to English. So we used a MateCat. It's a CAT translation tool. And so I was the first one to translate everything. And then each of the lessons, the authors for each lesson, they revised the translations to make sure that we kept the same idea. And we were still emphasizing the idea that they were trying to say and what they were trying to teach in that lesson. After all of this translation process, then we adapted the book to Pressbooks. So Pressbooks is an online open source tool I'm going to show you very soon. And then we decided to use this tool because it gives us the ability of creating some interactive activities. And that's why we needed to do some adaptations, because the original version of the book was just on paper. So we had to adapt to make it suitable for an online environment. So why did we decide to choose Pressbooks and to publish our book using Pressbooks? So first of all, it's an open source, so it's available for anyone in any part of the world. There's also the unlimited ability to edit, update, and re-export the book. So even now we're launching the book and it's ready, but once we get feedback or if we see anything that could be changed, could be adapted, we can go back and we can keep changing or adding to it. And also there is a customizable design and the ability of creating interactive activities, as I mentioned. So there are a lot of plugins available. I don't know if you're familiar with H5P, but you can create a lot of interactive activities using that tool and then integrate it to Pressbooks. And also the interface is pretty user-friendly and multiple people, because as you saw, we have a big team, multiple people can collaborate and work together on the resource. So just very quickly to show you, this is the Pressbooks platform from an admin side. So in here, you can see like I can organize the different lessons, the different chapters of the book. I can add information about the contributors, and then the plugins are available. And there are lots of different things that you could explore. And in terms of our book, so this is our book. I'm pretty sure Carolina has shared the link of our book in the chat. So you can click on the link and then you can have a look on our book available online. So to navigate the book, so you can scroll down, and then here you are going to have, like, of course, the introduction, acknowledgement of country, and then after that you have all the lessons. So for all the lessons, for each one of the lessons, we have the lesson description, lesson plan, lesson development, activities, hands-on, hands-off, and feedback. So if you plan to use this resource in your own classroom or for your own learning, please leave any feedback for us so we can, keep improving this resource. So yeah, as you scroll down, there are other lessons, and we're going to see some of these lessons later on. But just to show you. And then once you click, so for example, if I want to have a look at lesson 2, so I can click on it, and then I'll be directed to the page, to the lesson, and to navigate the lesson, I can just move to the next page. Okay, and also, if we go back to the home page, so you can download the book. So in here, you have this option of downloading the book. You can click on it, and then you can have a PDF version of that. Just keep in mind that when you download the book, you lose some of the interactive activities that are only available online, but you still have all the resources in there. So I think that's all from me. We will now move on to our first lesson demonstration. So I would like to hand it over to Silmara.
Buenos días, buenas noches. Me llamo Silmara, soy profesora en una universidad en Presidente Prudente, Brasil, donde ministro clases de español para un curso de eventos. Entonces, yo voy a presentar la lección en que trabajé con fines específicos con la lengua, donde los estudiantes de español tendrían que elaborar un protocolo de eventos en momento de pandemia. Entonces, la lección se llamó Un evento inolvidable. Acá tenemos todo el contexto de la lección para que los profesores y los interesados en el libro puedan comprender un poco más sobre lo que se trata. Puede saltar. Entonces, la herramienta que yo utilicé fue Sketchend para esa lección. Y tenemos también un tutorial explicando todo el proceso para hacer la compilación del corpus, las líneas de concordancia y todo que pueda explorar en esa herramienta. Puede saltar. Acá tenemos la presentación de la lección, el plan de la lección. Entonces tenemos el título, el contexto, los objetivos de la lección, los objetivos específicos, el nivel que la lección fue pensada, que es B1, el mod, né, el modelo, y más o menos cuántas clases son estimadas y cuánto tiempo para cada clase en esa lección. Puede saltar. Entonces, también tenemos acá en el libro una parte donde las personas que tienen algún tipo de dificultad para la lectura puedan escuchar y saber de qué se trata. Puede ser. La introducción. Entonces, es una especie de aquecimiento donde los alumnos van a quedarse con los títulos de 10 noticias de periódicos distintos, donde hablaba sobre eventos en la pandemia, más específicamente las bodas. ¿Cómo sería la conmemoración de las bodas en la pandemia? Entonces, era distribuido los textos, los títulos, perdón, de las noticias, y los alumnos tendrían que hablar un poquito de qué se trataba. En el desarrollo, ya vamos para una parte más práctica. Después los alumnos tienen contacto con todas las noticias, ¿no? Y cada grupo lee una noticia y compartilla. Y después los alumnos van precisamente para el sketching, observar las líneas de concordancia y algunos verbos. Entonces, empezamos con la aplicación de la actividad. Puede saltar. Y después tenemos la conclusión, donde ellos tendrían que escribir sus propios protocolos, y la evaluación, que es una especie de compartilhar mismo lo que vimos y las experiencias. Puede ser. Entonces, en la actividad 1, vimos algunos títulos de noticias que hablaban sobre cómo serían las bodas en la pandemia. Entonces, tenemos acá los links donde pueden entrar en los sitios para accesar esas noticias. ¿Puede? Acá tenemos algunas de las noticias, ¿no? Cómo se celebran las bodas después del coronavirus. ¿Puede? Así serán las bodas, era otra noticia. En la actividad 2, tendrían que observar sobre los verbos, ¿sí? Perdón, la actividad 2, ellos leían las noticias y después hablaban un poquito para el grupo sobre qué cada noticia ha tratado. Puede saltar. La actividad 3, la herramienta Sketching, donde observaban los verbos, específicamente los verbos haber, tener y deber. El objetivo era que los alumnos reflexionasen cuál de los 3 verbos eran más utilizados para escribir los protocolos, donde qué tendrían que hacer para tener éxito en una boda o en otro tipo de fiesta en el momento de pandemia. Puede pasar. Entonces, observaban los 3 verbos. En la actividad 4, era más específico sobre las líneas de concordancia. Y en ese libro puede intentar, y caso no tenga éxito, el libro va a mostrar el error. Y después, basado en las líneas de concordancia, ellos tendrían una actividad práctica, escribir el protocolo para hacer una boda en un momento de pandemia. Entonces, el objetivo era que observasen que el verbo deber fue el más utilizado para escribir los protocolos. El verbo deber siempre acompañado de un verbo en el infinitivo. Puede saltar. Y tenemos también todo ese proceso hands-off, donde el profesor lleva impreso todas las etapas, con las líneas de concordancia, las noticias también impreso, para que los alumnos puedan accesar directamente en la clase, sin necesariamente ir a un laboratorio de informática. Es eso. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Xiomara. I think we're now going to hand it over to Talita, so to introduce a little bit of her lesson.
Hello, can everybody see me? Yeah. Can you listen to me, fam? Yes, okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good night for everybody. My name is Talita. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at São Paulo State University, and I work with Paula and everybody in this group, yeah, and I also participate of the production of this book, and I'm going to show you, yeah, fastly, one of my lessons. Yeah, I have 3 lessons, one together with Professor Celso Rocha about Brazilian law, another one about queer language, and this one about the Brazilian culture. The idea was working with some expressions and name of different food that we have in Brazil in English, translated from a book by Professor Darcy Ribeiro, a very important anthropologist from Brazil. He's unfortunately dead right now. But we used for this experience the DeepL, a translation machine, and also COCA, the Corpus of American Contemporary English. Yeah, I'm a bit nervous. Okay, so the first activity in my unit is about what people know about our country, about Brazil, and about Latin America, once they are not every time talking about Brazil and talking about America. So the students can write down what they think about us, yeah, and then they will find some different words, okay? Yeah, so you can pass. The other one. Thank you. And in activity 2, we were I selected some examples of using names of, how can I say that? Foods and activities that we have in Brazil. And then the idea is that the professor or the teacher asks for the students to look for the same words and on COCA, and then they can write down and try to look for the lines and concordance. Yeah, I know. And then they can discuss about these words that they don't know and see what happens. For example, one of the words in this excerpt is tapioca, one of our foods, and we can find these on COCA. Yeah, so they can try to find the components and everything. In activity 3, we have 10 different words that are that were translated from Darcy Ribeiro's book, and some of them are related to our country specifically. For example, caboclos. This is a kind of indigenous people mixed up with Black people. And woodsmen, they live inside the woods here in Brazil. So the idea is that the students can use Lingui, and also if they want DeepL, and translate it into their languages and see what kind of words they have and try to compare and see if it's similar, if they use different words for that, and discuss our country, discuss Brazil. And in activity 4, We have two different examples of foods in Brazil, and also of different places, geographical places here. And they can also use the translation machine so they can see what this kind of places mean in their language, and see if they know this kind of places, if they saw it. For example, banana plantation, they know what banana is for example, but they don't know what kind of plantation we have here in Brazil. And finally, in activity 5, we have a discussion about this vocabulary, and if they could learn about Brazil using English vocabulary, or if it was difficult, if the deep L, if coca and lingui were useful for them, and if they could learn about culture, if they could learn about their own words for those words that we presented. And that is this activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fran. I'm not sure. Well, I think it's Peter right now. I'll be presenting the last one.
Thank you. And thanks so much to our presenters there. This has been one of my favorite sessions so far, of all of the ones that we've done, because we've got people who are coming in talking about the things that they designed. And I particularly really enjoyed the explanation in Spanish together with the presentation in English there. It's a first for us, and hopefully not the last. So it's a big step, and it's something that is one of the main sources of significance and innovation for this project, in that we're emphasizing, we're presenting this resource with these ready-made lesson plans that deal with DDL in languages other than English. I say for the first time, I did actually see Luciana Forti in the audience. I think you just had a new book out on data-driven learning for Italian, as far as I'm aware. I'm going to have to confirm that at the end of the session, but you can see one of the things that the field has been calling for some time is resources in languages other than English, and we're really now seeing a number of these in the literature, and this is just another step in that direction. So for the field, and also at the personal level, I'm very proud of this resource, and I'm very proud of all of the different authors and the people that have contributed and the work that's gone into it. More than that, the book, as what is a very practical resource, really highlights what many teachers find difficult with corporate data-driven learning, and it's that integration into lesson planning, whereby unlike most traditional kind of corpus-based teacher training resources, where the corpus is like the main focus and it takes up the whole lesson, and it's like the be-all and end-all of the corpus training. What you can see here is how that the focus on form that's provided by Corpora and DDL can be meaningfully and almost seamlessly integrated into interesting lesson planning, combined with other non-corpus based activities and resources, including YouTube, all kinds of different other activities that can be done individually, pair work, group work with the whole class, and showing that integration of how you can incorporate corpus use into lesson plans for what are essentially very fun lessons. All of the lessons that we've included in the guide are fun. There are all lessons that as a practicing language teacher way back in the day, I would have loved to been able to present to my students for whatever in the different various learning contexts teaching and learning contexts where I've worked. So that's definitely a huge area of innovation for this volume. And the other thing that I'm really proud of is the fact that the book is accessible to teachers who are working in contexts where they don't have much access to technology, where in that all of the lessons that are included in the volume have two versions. You have the hands-on DDL version, where the students get access to the computers and the devices, and they can go ahead and consult the corpora for themselves. But we've also produced the so-called hands-off versions for each lesson, where as long as the teacher has access to a computer and a printer, they can print out the resources and share them with students in technologically in contexts where access to devices may be restricted, or in low technology contexts where issues getting access to devices or broadband internet, for example, may be severely limited. We know that the team at UNESP worked a lot with rural teachers in geographically isolated locations, and the fact that this resource is there can help them bring that computer-assisted language learning feel into the classroom, but without necessarily with everybody having computers, I think is a huge step. So I think those are the main sources of significance and innovation. For that, I think I'm very proud of this volume. I'm very proud of the different contributors who have worked on it. So let's head over to the next slide, man. And certainly, in terms of something that is happening next week, as early as next week, a couple of the lessons from this book are being used in pre-service English language teacher training courses in Vietnam. This is going to be featured in a special issue of TESOL Quarterly that's coming up on assessing the effectiveness of corpus-based approaches to English language teaching, this time in and we may also manage to fit this into a book chapter on computer-assisted language learning in the global south, of which both Brazil and Vietnam are part, and we may look at some kind of comparative study there as well. And then, of course, maybe Paula will discuss some of the in-service teacher training courses in Brazil for in-service and pre-service teachers. I know that this is something that Carolina will be working on with me over the year as a visiting PhD student here at UQ. And it's also going to be incorporated into two courses on our popular Masters of Applied Linguistics program here at UQ. That's our courses on corpus linguistics and second language writing, teaching, and research. That's enough from me. I'm going to hand back now to Paula to finish us off for today.
Thank you so much, Peter. I'm not sure. I think Anna Frankenberg, I think she had to leave, but anyway, I would just like to mention that one of the tools that we have in this book is concerning English for academic purposes, and it's called Collocate. So those colleagues who work with post-graduation and undergraduation students, they might want to take a look at. So I would like to thank Peter for this opportunity of publishing this book for an international audience. And I'd like to thank my colleague, Adriane Orenha Otayano, who has worked with me in this line of research in our postgraduate program of linguistic studies. Also my coordinator, I'm not sure if she's still here, Claudia Zavalha, but it was very nice to have her representing our program. Our research group, Incorpora, Global Strategy and Partnership Seed Funding Scheme from the UQ, CAPES Pinto program, and the Open Textbook UQ grant. Thank you so much. And I would also like to thank Fran and Caroline for organizing all the meeting and the presentation, for all the hard work they have put into this presentation. And now I think we can open for questions and comments. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, everyone. So yeah, we do have time now for questions and comments. Just going back to that comment I did make, yeah, Luciana 40 did confirm that she's got a book coming out at the end of this month in a couple of days on corpus use in Italian language pedagogy, which again is a fantastic innovation. She also mentions books on DDL for Spanish and German are in the works, so that's great. I know Anna Frankenberg is in here as well, and we've just name dropped Collocate as one of the corpus tools that is used in a couple of the lessons in this book as well. So thanks so much there to Anna and the team for providing that tool. But now we'll open it up for questions. I've just had one here as a direct message, and then I'll take questions that have come in to other people as well. So okay, no, I'll answer that question later because that's not related to today's talk. But so we'll open it up then for questions from the audience.
Also, the authors.
Can I just say something?
Adriana is there.
Yeah, just as I have to leave in a few minutes. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for the partnership. It was a great pleasure to be here with you. And I would like to say that I'm sure the book will be a success, a great contribution to foreign language teaching and learning. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm sure it will be a success.
Okay, I don't know if Celso.
So there was one question, of course, are all the tools used in the book available in free versions? And I think that was one of the main ideas behind the selection of the resources. I think some of the tools I think you might have to register for, like I think Collocate, for example, does require registration, but it is still free, I believe, to use. And this is something that you know, I myself have always done with these tools. I never used any tools that have been paid. And I think now that even if you do have tools that are paid, they're usually for very specific research purposes. And certainly I wouldn't be recommending them for just a kind of everyday classroom use. So hope that answers that question.
Yeah, and also there is a video, a short video in each unit explaining how the tools work. So I think it also, it helps a lot.
Yeah, and that's something that is really made possible by this Pressbooks initiative, in that it's not just a book, you know, in terms of your regular book, but it is an interactive book that contains activities that can be completed on the website, as well as obviously embedded YouTube videos, links to other resources, links to the Corpus tools. So that's something that is a really unique selling point, I guess, for a free book. And you talk about selling points for a free book, but at the end of the day, that is something that separates this book from some of the other open educational resources that have already been released. Fran, I got your question there about the difference between hands-on and hands-off activities. Maybe we could demonstrate that with an example from the book. Fran, do you want to pick one that you could share?
Yes, sure. So let me come here. So I think look at this lesson. Is this love? So we have the lesson plan as Silmara and Talita presented, the lesson development, and then we have hands-on and hands-off activities. So Carol, since this is your lesson, would you mind maybe talking a little bit about the difference? Because someone asked us about the difference between hands-on and hands-off activities.
Hi, everyone. Okay, Fran, like you showed for sure. The first part, the hands-on, is the interactive part that you can see here. Like we have the H5P activity, so students can answer directly on the website. They can also use the tool like BNC Lab. Fran, could you please click on BNC Lab so they can just take a look? So see, you click here and the student then can go straight to the tool and they can search for the word. Could you please search love just to demonstrate? Then here they can use the tools. If you click in usage, could you click the first one, Fran? Yes, that's it. See, here you have all the concordance lines. You have different filters that you can use. You can organize the data by gender, by age, and make comparison. That's what we try to do in this lesson, to see how men use love and in different contexts from women, this kind of discussion. So this is a hands-on approach. So the students go there and they are doing this. We'd like to just make a small observation about it. Since it's language in use, we cannot control what kind of a phrase are you going to appear there. So maybe it's something that is not exactly appropriate for a certain age or for a certain culture. So that's why you have the hands-off version 2. For 2 reasons. For this, so you can control more what kind of material you're going to use. At the same time that you can print it. If you don't have computers in your environment, your classroom environment, or for any reason it's not possible for everyone to use it, you don't have internet or something like this, you can just print this concordance lines, for example, that is the tool that we are seeing here as an example, and then use it in your classroom. And you can even select, it's still DDL because it's word, it's a language in use. People really said this, so we are not creating phrases to use this in classroom, but you are selecting which one is more appropriate for class. So it's another way that you can use this hands-on or hands-off. You can print, select it better, and then use with your students. Another thing that this I would like to highlight about our book is that even though we have different themes in each lesson, you can adapt it. So if you're talking about like Thalita's lessons about Brazilian culture, you can do it about any culture, right? Following the same steps, you can just change the subject. Or even about love, you could do this with any other word and just follow the same steps. We try to do this in a way that is adaptable for everyone to their context. And then you could follow simple steps that we try to do. That's why you have the tutorials, so you could use it in your own classroom.
Okay, thanks there to Carolina. I hope that now answers that question. The next question was from Olfa. It says, for assessments, how do you advise on making them corpus-based? I think it's an interesting question, actually, in that it depends what you want to assess. So are you assessing the language item, like whether that's been acquired? Are you assessing the corpus skill? So, the activities in terms of formative assessment will be testing the corpus skills. But I think for most of the lessons, the lesson ends kind of more on a reflective note rather than having kind of formal assessments. That's certainly something that could be added to a number of these lesson plans. So either testing the corpus skill or testing knowledge of the language item, perhaps using corpora as part of that test. I don't think we have that many activities in the book that deal with assessment directly, but that could certainly be an interesting addendum to a number of the lessons. And it's something also that I think that the field as a whole hasn't really covered yet in much detail. And that's an area that I think we may need to work on ourselves because any assessment would require probably significant scaffolding in order to be valid in that case. So I'll also then move on to Anthony's question, and this is directed at Thalita about her experience of using corpora to teach culture. As he quite rightly points out, that most of the research tends to focus on discrete linguistic features and less on culture. And that's why this was one of my favorite lessons in the book. So can you tell us a little bit about how that's gone?
Yes, and thank you for the question. Yeah, actually, this was the first activity that I created in order to teach students that are not at the university. My PhD research was about observing how the books on anthropology here in Brazil were translated into English. Just a few of them, because our anthropologists are not very famous anywhere. So Darcy Ribeiro is one of them. Yeah. So I created a corpus based on two of his books. And then I observed how the translators were varying the cultural names and the culturally how can I say that? The cultural terms, yeah, the terminology. And then I used this corpus in a group with a group of translators, yeah, training translators, and they observed how the variation was happening. And they used some different dictionaries on anthropology here in Brazil and anthropology in different parts of the world in English. And they created their own translations on a part of Darcy Ribeiro's book. Yeah, so what I could observe is that after looking into the corpus, and I used wordsmith tools for this by that time, yeah, and they could have some kind of conscience. Yeah, they were aware of what they were doing, and they were sure that the different terms should be translated in different ways, and they could vary, they could use different characteristics of the text and reflect on this. So this was my first experience. And then Paula asked me to create this unity, these activities for different students from different places. And when we created the book in Portuguese, it was related to our own culture. Then when it was translated into English, we had to adapt and to wait for the answers. Now I'm waiting for people using it and creating the activities so we can have a feedback.
Okay, thanks so much. As I said, it's one of my favorite chapters from the book. I particularly enjoyed editing and these more cultural ones. I think there's some interesting experiences when editing those, and learned a lot about Brazilian culture. So yeah, we got another couple of questions. One is about the spread of levels within the book. This is from Gia Chi, who asks about the spread of levels of proficiency levels in the book. Do we capture mainly beginner students, or is it more intermediate to advanced? Paula, you got an answer for this one?
Yes. Thank you so much for the question, which is something that I think it's nice to point out, is that we have aimed to have all levels. Like if you see units 1 and 2 and 3, Jeanne is here. Jeanne has worked with frequency adverbs, everyday routine, and so very simple tasks that you will find in that lesson. Whereas in units 13 and 14, 12 and 13, we are going to involve literature, translation, culture. So we have more elaborated tasks to be developed by students. But you can have different levels, different audiences as well, and everything is explained in the lesson plans. So yeah,
that's great. And I think that the obviously the big idea here is that these lessons are there more as templates in a way, in that you can easily take any of the language features that are covered and then change it to an alternative, or maybe you can have a topic, keep the same language features, but then change the topic, or maybe use a different corpus tool or so on. So it's more about getting you embedded into that. How do I incorporate the corpus activity into a lesson? By seeing it done in a practical way, you can then easily modify the lessons to suit your own purposes. So, okay.
There's just one more thing that I'd like to add is that most of the units, I believe that all the tasks and tools will help you learn the language. Students will have to think about what they are learning. It's not anything ready. Even the tool about collocation, academic collocation, you will have to read and think about the language and which collocation would suit best to your text. So this is nice, I think, you know, not giving everything ready, but making students think about language and how language is used in different ways. So yeah, that's it.
And I think our colleague Celso Rocha would like to say something.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. I just would like to acknowledge the tremendous work of Diva Cardozo de Camargo. She was a professor here from UNESP, and she was responsible for the introduction of corpus linguistics here in a time in which criticism were very hard. So me, Talita, Paula, and Adriana Oreña, we learned quite a lot from this woman. So special acknowledgement from to Diva, right? Thank you.
Who is here, right? So she is our diva.
Okay, as I've just said in the chat, unfortunately, I think we're going to have to wrap things up as we're about on the hour. But would anybody, any of the other contributors like to say hi and to provide some final messages before we finish for today?
I'm not sure if Aline is here still. She wanted to say hi.
Is there anyone that didn't get a chance to say hi yet? So yeah, Aline or anyone else?
Oh, hi. My microphone wasn't working earlier, so I wasn't able to say hi, but hi. So thank you all for your input and for your feedback and all the compliments. We're really grateful for everything. And thank you everyone for this awesome presentation. It was really an enjoyable morning for us, evenings and afternoons for everyone else.
Yeah, that's always the problem. I think I'm off to bed in a moment where you'll be getting your morning coffee or something like that. So that's great. Was there anyone else who wanted to pop in and say hello?
Jenny, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So yeah.
Yeah, but keeping things simple. So that's okay. I think in that case, we're going to wrap up here. A big thanks, of course, to everybody for all of our audience, for attending, our presenters for presenting, our organizers for organizing, and it's been a real pleasure. Do stay tuned. We've got another special edition of our seminar series coming up in a couple of weeks where I'll be introducing my new corpus tool. Again, another free resource that everybody can use, and I'll talk about some of the research that went into that. I'll be presenting that with my co-developer. So do look out for, again, the usual social media channels for details of that talk. I think it'll be scheduled about mid-April at this point. So we're all on pretty tight schedules at the moment, but do look out for that. But in the meantime, thanks everyone for joining in, and we're going to stop the recording here, and I'll leave the chat. I'll obviously leave the room open for people to chat, but we're done here for tonight, and we'll upload the recording onto our school's website and YouTube channel as soon as we possibly can. So thanks everyone. Good night, or good morning, good afternoon, and we'll see you all very soon.